Welcome to this week's lesson on rhetorical analysis. So 2 of your major papers this semester are rhetorical analyses. The first one is a draft, and the second one is your final paper. You've already done an open letter analysis, it was a rhetorical analysis, but that was a little bit more of a practice to see where you're at and get you practicing for the bigger papers. So it's important for you to know what a rhetorical analysis is and how to write one. Let's get started. But first, the final appeal is kairos. So kairos goes hand in hand with the Aristotelian appeals, ethos, pathos, and logos. You already know ethos is credibility, logos is logic, and pathos is emotion. But kairos is the opportune moment, or the cultural relevance, or timing. So as writers, we must understand the time in which we are writing a text, the place, the audience, and of course the topic. All these work together to create a cohesive and powerful rhetorical situation. Understanding these concepts and using them to seize the opportune moment is how we utilize kairos. When analyzing a text, we as readers should look at the time, place, audience, and topic to understand why they needed to make the argument they did at the time they did. Think back to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. He was responding to an open letter with an open letter. He was in jail. He was arrested during peaceful demonstrations in Birmingham, and it was the civil rights movement. This was his opportune moment to discuss his purpose, the reason for the demonstrations, and why they were so important. It was the opportune moment to get his point across to his audience. So a rhetorical analysis picks apart a text and identifies the rhetorical situation and the author's utilization of the appeals. And I love this last definition. So more than that, though, it's a method of deeply listening to a text and understanding a text's purpose and message. All the while, you are creating a text. So the rhetorical analysis is important for us to understand how rhetoric works in a text and how we, as the consumer, consume certain texts. So how do I write a rhetorical analysis? Well, first, choose a text. It could be any rhetorical text. We discussed these in the genre lesson. It could be an essay, open letter, website, film, book, social media page, etc. Anything that uses rhetoric is open. Then read the text once over, then read it again, but this time paying close attention to the rhetorical situation and the strategy the author uses to persuade the reader. You need to definitely read this text more than once. I like to do a quick read over without, just as I normally would anything, just read it normal, and then go back and read it for the purpose I'm reading it. But you need to answer questions like, what's the motivation and purpose for why an author composes a text? Why do you think so? How does an author establish credibility or ethos? What is the historical context and cultural timing in which a text emerges and provokes particular messages? What else is happening in the cultural and historical moment? That's kairos. How does a writer discover and create topics or subjects for communication? Who is the target audience or composite audience for a particular text? Who are secondary audiences? How do speakers, writers reach particular audiences? So remember when we talk about audiences that the secondary audience, okay, let's go back to the open letter from MLK. All right, so we talked about his audience being since it was a response to an open letter of the other Southern clergy members that suggested that he was doing something wrong with these demonstrations, although they were for desegregation, they were against it. They wanted him to go towards the law route, going through the law instead of doing these demonstrations. So he was responding to them, telling them, why they needed to do these demonstrations, why it was so important, they couldn't be quiet any longer. And we discussed that they were the target audience. But we also talked about all of the other people, because this was posted in newspapers and magazines. There were so many more people that were the audience, and that would be the secondary audience. So it always goes beyond the target audience. Okay, also ask, how do authors appeal to the values and opinions of different audiences? What appeals does a writer employ in order to persuade audiences in a particular way? And what is the medium of a text? How does medium relate to audience expectations or textual conventions? Remember, medium is how they deliver it, whether it's a book, website, social media post, etc. And where is the text published? Where literally do audiences encounter the text? Again, with the MLK open letter, we got it in a lot of different ways. And you can think about how we receive text now, and we get it constantly and from every direction, it seems. In what discourse community is the text delivered, and how do you know? So this is, what community is it being discussed? And how do audiences interact with the text, and what are the textual materials and modes? And how does genre, medium invite particular modes? So then while you're researching for your topic, you need to research rhetorically. Remember, everything you write tells a little something about you. What do you want your readers to know about you? Be deliberate in your choices. So you're going to do a lot of research, hopefully, to find which text you would like to analyze. And you do need to answer those questions. Why is this text important to me? What do I want to tell my classmates and instructor about myself by choosing this text? Remember that that's going to be your target audience is your classmates and your instructor, which is me. And then you are going to have a secondary audience because you're going to put this in your e-portfolio. Therefore, other people can see it. How does this text utilize kairos and is still relevant? This is important because you're obviously choosing it for a reason. Are you choosing it because of something that's going on today, something that is culturally relevant, happening now, so on and so forth? All right, so the summary is kairos is an important appeal to consider when analyzing, choosing, and writing rhetorically. Kairos considers the time, place, audience, and topic to determine the opportune moment. A rhetorical analysis uses textual evidence to interpret the rhetorical situation and the appeals used by the author. Consider why you selected your chosen topic and research it rhetorically. And finally, a rhetorical analysis has an introduction with a thesis statement, body paragraphs that includes textual evidence to support your claim, and a conclusion explaining why it matters. And as always, if you need me, I'm here for you.